And there is a lot going on. By the way, Nashville's Morning News brought to you by Tennessee National Golf and Waterfront Community. Find them online, TennesseeNational.com. So Mayor Freddie O'Connell, you know, you got to at least give the mayor credit. And I know that it's hard, but you've got to give the mayor credit for showing up on the Murphy Show and going through an interview. And he talked about a lot of things, including NES and the CEO, Teresa Broyles-Applin. So let's get into that. That's what I'm going to focus on this morning. There is a news story this week about the DEI within NES. So we'll talk about that as well. But we all know the story about how unprepared NES was for the ice storm. I mean, let's just go down the list, right? We didn't have nearly enough linemen, not enough cutting of the trees. And she was very proud of the tree canopy. Of course, we know about the embracement of DEI, the website and the app for NES. Both were glitchy to the point where they simply didn't work when they needed to work. Failure after failure after failure. So one of Matt's questions seemed to really set the tone for the whole interview. Listen to this.
Do you have confidence in Teresa Broyles-Applin that she can continue to lead as CEO NES?
So here's what I'll say. While I've been in office and even starting beforehand when I was on Metro Council, I started to see under her leadership an ability and a willingness to lean into some things we had looked at in NES that I had thought made sense, including things like utility burial, including things like simplifying and strategically improving their network. They had been working on that before the storm arrived. I do think she has given indications that for ordinary times she is a capable leader, and I think she learned a lot. And I think the question is going to be for her board, for state legislators, for people especially out of county, can she demonstrate a level of confidence in her leadership that is cross-cutting?
Okay, I don't know what the hell any of that meant, cross-cutting. Here's what I know. What I know is that when you are a leader of utility like NES, you heard the mayor basically say, well, for everyday issues, she seems fine. But what the mayor doesn't seem to understand, and by the way, you'll notice that he actually didn't answer the question about whether or not he had confidence in the CEO of NES. But part of the day-to-day priorities of NES is making sure that you are ready for when an ice storm hits, and that is where she failed. And by the way, here's the other part of that soundbite that just, really upset me and angered me, was when the mayor said something about how, she has learned a lot from this experience. That woman makes $646,000. So I'm sorry, but for $646,000, she shouldn't be learning on the job. Is that so hard, Mr. Mayor? It's great that, she's fine in ordinary times. Well, a lot of people can lead in ordinary times. But again, here's the thing. While she was doing those ordinary things in ordinary times, she wasn't doing what needed to be done as far as emergency preparedness. And again, you'll notice he didn't actually answer the question. So it doesn't seem like he does have confidence in her. He did say that he would not fire her if he had the choice.
If you had the ability, singularly as mayor of Nashville, would you fire Teresa Broyles-Applin?
It would be unlikely unless, as we've seen in at least one recent event, we had a clear finding that a decision she made was clearly a result of what was going on.
Okay, well, they started with just 160 linemen as the storm began. Next. I'm going to play that one more time.
If you had the ability, singularly as mayor of Nashville, would you fire Teresa Broyles-Applin?
It would be unlikely unless, as we've seen in at least one recent event, we had a clear finding that a decision she made was clearly a result of what was going on.
Okay, so let's just, I'm gonna talk real slow, right? So the mayor can hear me. NES began this ice storm with just 160 linemen as the storm began. That clearly wasn't enough. And so that led to a massive delay in getting the power back on. So it does seem to me like, yeah, one of her decisions led to weeks without power. So I don't understand the disconnect. During the interview, it felt like O'Connell, he was trying to defend Teresa Broyles-Applin, and I don't really understand why. Listen to what he said about the tree canopy.
That there was a clear directive under her leadership to protect the canopy of Nashville, and that's fine. If the citizens of Nashville want their trees and want to enjoy the beauty that goes along with them.
So I don't know what that was. I mean, I'm hoping this is, you've probably seen this. Their board has said, we're going to hire a couple of attorneys with a lot of experience doing this. We're going to do a rapid assessment to look at things like that. It's not. I've heard this, but I haven't gone in depth on it. Again.
Wait, can I ask a question? I'm going to rewind that about 5 seconds.
Yes, we're going to do a rapid assessment to look at things like that. It's not. I've heard this, but I haven't gone in depth on it. Again.
Why have you not gone in depth on it, Mr. Mayor? Like, I would think that, I don't know, you'd be involved in this somehow. And the whole thing with the tree canopy, where we weren't trimming the trees enough, and that led to ice on the trees, which caused them to fall onto the power lines and cut people's power? Why would you have not delved into this? Because this is a major part of the issue. I mean, it almost feels like the mayor wants to sort of disconnect himself from this whole discussion, but if he wants to be educated on these things, he needs to figure it out. Remember that before the ice storm happened, a couple of months before the ice storm happened, there was an internal report that said that because of the beloved tree canopy, that we would be in big trouble if there were an ice storm. Yet they did nothing. Here's more from the mayor.
And if this is something that it turns out that was her direction, I can tell you, I talked to Governor Bredesen about this in the setting up of the commission. Going back to 1994, this was where the modern era tree trimming policy for NES came from. I don't know that there have been big adjustments to it, but we should figure that out.
Well, yeah, you probably should, and we'll see if they actually do figure that out. But again, it just feels like what he's trying to do is he is trying to, in this interview, it did seem to me like he was trying to protect the CEO of NES. And I got to tell you, again, for the amount of money that she makes, and we're going to get into this in a little bit more detail, but for the amount of money that she makes, it seems stunning to me that you had the mayor say, well, you know, for the day-to-day operation of NES, she's fine, and hopefully she's learned about these kinds of situations. Well, for the amount of money that we're paying her, she should not be learning on the job. So just going over some of the relevant audio from Matt's interview with Mayor Freddie O'Connell. I'm wide-ranging, great interview on Matt's part. And again, kudos to the mayor for coming on. Matt was, very, what's the right word? He was respectful in the interview, but Matt did ask some very pointed questions. For example, Matt asked about the lack of the lineman that I just mentioned. Listen to how he seems to skate around this issue to another related topic, but not answer the specific question as to the amount of linemen staged at the ready as the ice storm hit. Remember, it was only like 160, 165 or so, and every expert that I've heard, every person that I've spoken to says that they needed at least twice the number that they did. This is what the mayor said.
Preparation in terms of linemen and staging in ways that in similar cities we've seen reports where thousands of linemen were staged in North Carolina, thousands of linemen staged in Atlanta.
So this is exactly the thing I'm talking about, though. We found, for instance, during the middle of the ice storm, people making accusations that NES was leaving line workers on the sidelines. And I talked to regional leadership.
So see, you see what he's doing, right? So the mayor is choosing, because that is a fact. I mean, it is an absolute fact. Multiple investigations have found that we did not have enough linemen at the ready. So what the mayor did is he pivots into something else and is basically saying, well, NES is being unfairly scrutinized by people that are spreading misinformation. And I'm assuming that if I asked the question of the mayor, he would say people on social media. You know, those kinds of things were happening on the socials. But he chooses not to answer the specific question that Matt asked about the linemen, and he segues into, you know, this other conversation about, and I think he's talking about the story early on about how NES didn't want to work with a particular union.
NES was leaving line workers on the sidelines. And I talked to regional leadership for the IBEW, which has access to a lot of line workers, connected them directly to NES leadership, and it opened a channel. We got told by other people that thing had not happened. So I can tell you definitively one line of accusations that was made at NES is provably untrue because I had firsthand knowledge of it.
So the mayor choosing not to talk about one thing that has been proven to go into something else that he claims is has not been proven. So, you know, again, as I'm listening to this interview, it doesn't seem like he has done a lot of due diligence as of yet. I would have hoped that he would have. Matt also did ask a fantastic question about the salary of the head of NES.
Do you believe that $654,000 is an acceptable amount of compensation for the CEO of NES?
I mean, this is a hard one to judge on because if I'm looking at all of the executive leadership and the public level, I raised that question myself when I was on Metro Council looking at overall levels of NES compensation. And what I heard from board members at the time was, you know, this is sort of a necessary competitive landscape to get a credible leader for a utility of this size.
$654,000. And again, not to belabor the point, but I do. That's what I do. I belabor points. But my point is that with what we're paying for that job, then we should expect better from the leader of that utility. That $654,000 salary should guarantee us that when the crap hits the fan or the ice hits the ground and the utility poles and the trees and everything, that they're ready to go. Not learning on the job like the mayor said earlier. Not, oh, she's learned from this experience. Well, at that salary, there should not be any learning on the job. There shouldn't be. And by the way, earlier this week, you know, with the war and everything else, or the whatever you want to call it in Iran, I didn't cover this as I should have. I think this came out on Wednesday or Thursday. This headline from the Tennessee Star. The headline is, NES asking workers to consider connection to those of a different race and sexual orientation in one of their now infamous 102 DEI training sessions, according to a new report. So the second that I saw that headline, I'm thinking, okay, so they were more concerned with the connection of workers inside NES to those of different races and sexual orientation and so forth. Seems to me like they were more concerned about that connection than keeping people connected to power. Presentation slides from a diversity, equity, and inclusion training session held by Nashville Electric Service in 2023 were published by the Daily Wire on Wednesday, revealing employees were asked to consider their connection to individuals with different backgrounds and beliefs, including those of different races and with different sexual preferences. I mean, what an absolute cluster. Looking back on what happened during the ice storm and looking back at what they seem to be focused on. And I know that there's going to be people that'll say, well, they weren't focused on the DEI. These were just, you know, 102, DEI training sessions, but they can walk and chew gum at the same time. The problem is, and I'm just going to tell you, the problem is that when we saw such catastrophic failures within NES, with the board and with the CEO, Teresa Boyle-Zaplan, and then you see that this was one of the things that they were focused on, it's just a bad look. As we like to say, it doesn't age well. Daily Wire reporting the training session corresponding to the slides included in its reporting was conducted in 2023, suggesting it was one of the 102 DEI events for employees revealed by NES in an environmental, social, and governance report held from 2023 and until early 2024. But here's another part of the story. NES had said that those DEI training sessions ended in 2024, but the story, according to the Tennessee Star, actually says that, and they admit that, well, the training sessions did not end in 2024. Those training sessions actually ended in 2025. So in addition to problems keeping the power on, it would appear that NES also has issues with the truth. Hey, Joan, real quick.
Yeah.
Do you think that Glenn Jacobs, the mayor of Knox County, does he get tired of people calling him Kane?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Should I ask him that? Because I would get tired of it. Because he's clearly moved, well beyond the world of wrestling.
Sure, but it's part of it's part of why he is where he is, right? You wouldn't have known who he was if he was just some.
Well, I would know that he was the Knox County
Joe.
mayor.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what? When I first interviewed him, and it was years ago, and he's always such a great interview. But I'm ashamed to say that when I first interviewed him, they had to explain to me who Kane was or what Kane was. I had no idea. I'm not a wrestling guy.
Know. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just, I'm actually not going to ask him that question because I've got a lot of really important things that I want to talk to him about, things going on here in the state of Tennessee. So, and by the way, I've decided that my interview with Glenn Jacobs, it is going to be free of any discussion regarding the war or anything else because that has certainly been well covered. I want to focus on some Tennessee issues and looking forward to that conversation at 8:06. And again, Andy Ogle's going to be at 7:06 here on Super Talk 99.7. I heard your news report, Joan, about there's been a lot of missiles going back and forth overnight and this morning. That does continue as well. Is Iran having, as far as you can tell, they're having some success with their drones and so forth, but there have also been a lot of interceptions. Is that basically what you're seeing as well?
I am. Also, the U.S. blew up one of its, now the U.S. is on its 30th ship from Iran. That
They've
is
got
now,
nothing left.
Yeah, down in the bottom of the ocean. But one of the ships that they blew up was one that was a strike. It held all the drones that
it's a drone carrier.
Yeah, so that's one thing that we're looking toward. Also, they're very focused. The U.S. and Israel is very focused on the launchers. So they're trying to strike at the areas where the missiles and the drones are being launched from. Because they can have all the missiles they want, but if they can't launch them, then they're no good. So that's what they're focused on at this point. Also, Iran yesterday, they used some of the bunker busters, which are, they're not supposed to be used.
Right. But, the thing about Iran is they're going to do what they're going to do. And I think Iran, you said they're not supposed to use the bunker busters?
No, I think by international law.
Oh, God.
Bunker busters are not supposed to be used.
I'm pretty sure Iran doesn't care about international law.
Pretty sure you're right about that.
Marco Rubio, this audio has been making the rounds. Sam has pulled it up. This is audio from Marco Rubio back in 2015, and it does pertain to what we're talking about. Go ahead and play it, Sam.
Senator from Tennessee would like to close on this matter. I think everything that needs to be said about the details of this deal have already been said. I do want to be recorded for history's purposes before I know what was going to happen in regards to this if it goes through. Iran will immediately use the money that it's receiving in sanctions relief to begin to build up its conventional capabilities. It will establish the most dominant military power in the region outside of the United States, and it will raise the price of us operating in the region. They're going to build anti-access capabilities, rockets capable of destroying our aircraft carriers and ships, continue to build these swift boats that are able to come on us, these fast boats that are able to swarm our naval assets. And they'll make it harder and harder for U.S. troops to be in the region. They'll also work with other terrorist groups in the region to target American servicemen and women. And they may or may not deny that they're involved, but they will target us and raise the price of our presence in the Middle East until they hope to completely pull us out of that region. They'll also continue to build long-range missiles, missiles capable of reaching the United States. Those are not affected by this deal, and they'll continue to build them as they've been doing. And then at some point in the near future, when the time is right, they will build a nuclear weapon. And they will do so because at that point they will know that they have become immune, that we will no longer be able to strike their nuclear program because the price of doing so will be too high. This is not just a work of imagination. It exists in the world today. It's called North Korea, where a lunatic possesses dozens of nuclear weapons and a long-range rocket that can already reach the United States. And we cannot do anything about it. An attack on North Korea today would result in an attack on Tokyo, or Seoul, or Guam, or Hawaii, or California. And so the world must now live with a lunatic in possession of nuclear weapons. And this is the goal Iran has as well, to reach a point where they become immune to any sort of credible military threat because the price of a military strike would be too high. And then they become an established nuclear weapons power. And never in the history of the world has such a regime ever possessed weapons so capable of destruction. Iran is led by a supreme leader who is a radical Shia cleric with an apocalyptic vision of the future. He is not a traditional geopolitical actor who makes decisions on the basis of borders or simply history or because of ambitions. He has an religious apocalyptic vision of the future, one that calls for triggering a conflict between the non-Muslim world and the Muslim world, one that he feels especially obligated to trigger. And he's going to possess nuclear weapons. This is the world that we are on the verge of leaving our children to inherit. And perhaps we ourselves will have to share in it. And so I want to be recorded for history's purposes, if nothing else, to say that those of us who opposed this deal understood where it would lead. And we are making a terrible mistake. And I fear that a passage of this deal will make it even harder for us to prevent it. And I hope that there is still time to change our minds. But here's the good news. Iran may have a supreme leader, but America does not. In this nation, we have a republic, and soon we will have new leaders, perhaps in this chamber, but also in the executive branch. And I pray that on their first day in office, they will reverse this deal and reimpose the sanctions and back them up with a credible threat of military force, or history will condemn us for not doing what needed to be done at this critical moment in the world's history.
You know, it's interesting, Joan and Sam, the more that I hear of Marco Rubio, the more I just...
Did you also just get chills listening to that prophetic speech?
It is very prophetic, and it was worth, it was a long audio bite, but I mean, it was every word that he said was critical, and as you said, prophetic as well. And the more we hear of Marco Rubio, I mean, obviously the more amazing and incredible he is, in my opinion. And he was correct. And everything that he was saying about the Iranian nuclear deal was correct. And when we see what Iran is doing with firing all of these rockets and these missiles and these drones, not only at Israel, but at all of these other neighboring nations as well in the Middle East, imagine if they did have nukes. That's the whole point. Imagine if they did have nukes. And so I think that, I understand that there's a lot of concerns about a lot of different things going on with this war. But I also understand that the United States did see, and Donald Trump and Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance and everybody else did see Iran as a very legitimate threat, nuclear and otherwise. Iran does continue to fire drones and missiles at Israel and other nations in the Middle East. Some are calling last night's barrage the most intense yet from Iran. So now we have some of these other Gulf states, Lebanon, Turkey, Azerbaijan, all impacted with Iran's retaliatory strikes. President Trump apparently gave an interview to Time magazine, and they write that he does acknowledge that there is a worry about retaliatory strikes here in America. like we just saw in Austin, Texas, and that, yes, some Americans may die. So, you do hear a lot of people on the left, and, they're freaking out, and they're talking about how Donald Trump is doing the wrong thing. We do have part of what's going on with this war, whatever you want to call it. Some people are trying not to call it a war. Some people are calling it a military action, whatever. But there's a narrative battle that is definitely going on here in America. You've got many Iranians and many people from the Middle East who live here right now who are voting, or rooting, I should say, against Iran, at least against Iran's government. Listen to this.
So God bless America. We love America. We respect the flag. This is our second flag. Our first flag is the flag of the United States of America. God bless America. God bless all of you. God bless our Army, our Navy, and whoever participating in this. And I pray in the name of Jesus, all of you guys to come back home safe. And again, we love you, Mr. President. Thank you so much. God bless America, and we love the flag of this country. Thank you so much.
I mean, I understand I run the risk of sounding like I'm running propaganda, and I'm not, but that is part of the news cycle where you have all of these people from the Middle East, and, they used to live in the Middle East, and now they're here, and they are cheering on Donald Trump. They're saying thank you to Donald Trump. And, then you have the people on the left, and they hate everything that Donald Trump does. And so, they are continuing, they're complaining about what Donald Trump is doing as well, including, of course, people in the media. And I guess my question to you would be, okay, so you see all of these idiots on libs of TikTok. And listen, I could do an entire show full of the morons that are being posted by libs of TikTok. And I get that. But you have all of these people on libs of TikTok who are, progressives and so forth, never been to Iran, never been to the Middle East. And yet they have the audacity to act like they know. And the reality is that they don't. Do you know who I trust? I trust a lot of these people who used to live in Iran or used to live in the Middle East. They know what has been going on in the Middle East, and now they're cheering because they are hopeful for change. Those are the people that I would more than likely listen to help me form my perspective as to what is going on. The morons on libs of TikTok, they're fun to laugh at. They're great for show prep. But as far as using that to form my perspective on what is going on in the Middle East, I know that if I'm on the opposite side of the idiots on libs of TikTok and what has been posted on libs of TikTok, then I know that I'm going in the right direction. I do still have my concerns. I still have the concerns that I've had for quite some time. However, we're in it. We're in it to win it. I love that we're being aggressive. I love that Israel's being aggressive as well, because the more aggressive that we are, the sooner this whole thing ends. So we're talking about reaction from all across the world to what is going on, the military action that is going on in Iran. Played your audio of a Persian guy here in America. We saw all of these rallies for America in Los Angeles, where they have a huge Iranian population. In Manchester, UK, there's a bunch of hardliners, like Iranian hardliners, who wanted to have a vigil for the now obliterated Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And I love this. A bunch of folks, Iranians and Middle Easterners, mind you, show up to interrupt their vigil, and they have a dance party.
Supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
That's, of course, Donald Trump. And this is in the streets of Manchester, United Kingdom.
Khamenei is dead.
So you get all these people that show up to have a vigil for Ayatollah al-Khamenei, and they've got all these other people show up and essentially taking over and having a dance party celebrating the Ayatollah's obliteration. I do love that.
That's a great mix.
What's that?
That song, it's a great mix. Like, it makes me want to do shots.
It is a great mix, and perhaps on doing shots. Is that actually available somewhere? See if you can find that. Sam.
I will try to find it.
Try to find that, because maybe that could be our opening theme song for like the 8 o'clock hour. By the way, I don't know if you heard this or saw this, but in Washington D.C.
on this vote, the yeas are 372, the nays are 53, 2 recorded as present. 2/3 being the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The resolution is agreed to.
All right, so what was that resolution? The House of Representatives passed a resolution to formally declare Iran as the largest state sponsor of terrorism. 372 were the yeas, and 53, of course, said no. Now, this was a vote to reaffirm that status. It's not a new designation. That designation has been going on for a long time. Iran has actually had that status. I believe it's since the mid-1980s, 1984. The Democrats who voted no on that, of course, the usual suspects. You've got your Ilhan Omar. You've got your Rashida Tlaib, among others. Meantime, in Iran, just kind of giving you a broad scope of what is going on with the war. In Iran, they have this assembly of experts who will be naming a new supreme leader. And it either, and I don't know, Joan, if you've got an update on this, but it looks like they'll be either choosing the son of the guy Trump obliterated, and in that case, it's just another hardliner. Israel says, you know what? You go right on ahead, and we'll just go ahead and kill him too. I mean, I do love that attitude.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, in a interview, dismissed that choice and said that he wants someone who will go in and basically clean out all of the hardliner crap and try and rebuild Iran, where it is, a government for the people and not the Islamic Republic, which has been the issue for, the last, 1979, so whatever that is, 40 years, whatever it is. As far as the ground troops go, Iran has been warning America that they are ready for those attacks, but Donald Trump says Iran has lost everything and that even more intense bombing is going to happen in the coming days. And so you have that as well. And the president did say that he was worried about attacks here in the homeland. And how much time? I've been going through a lot. Go ahead, Joan.
Did you hear that the poly markets are not as keen on the Ayatollah's son taking over as the next supreme leader?
No, tell me.
So the odds have fallen. So they were at at 80%, and now it's fallen below 50%. So, so it's not looking like he's going to be the guy, if you believe the poly markets.
I do believe the poly markets, actually, because they take politics out of everything.
Yeah.
I kind of hope he's the guy, though. You know why?
Because they'll take him out.
Well, just also because then we can play this banger again.
Ayatollah Khamenei is dead.
So where is this?
This is an Iranian DJ.
Khamenei is dead.
He put it together and posted it to Facebook and Instagram because obviously he's happy, his people are happy, and he's cropped it with videos of people celebrating, doing shots in front of the television. The clip I found on Facebook is hilarious.
Love it.
Iran's former supreme leader.
You know what's so funny, Joan? Is that, when I was referencing the libs of TikTok earlier.
Yeah.
So you see, and I always get in trouble because I'll call them like purple-haired freaks or whatever.
Yeah.
They always they all have a look. So I'm like, who am I? And I apologize to, you good, God-fearing conservatives that have purple hair. I'm just whatever. But it's like, who am I going to really have, empathy for or pay attention to? Some dip crap out of like New York or Chicago or whatever, who's never been to the Middle East and just is a Donald Trump hater and screaming about, what Donald Trump is doing. Or people like that Iranian DJ who is celebrating, I'm assuming he's in Iran, and all the Iranians who are celebrating the death of Ayatollah Khamenei, right? So who are you gonna feel more of a kinship with? The nut job liberal on libs of TikTok or the Iranians who are celebrating in the streets.
Yeah. No, and the point made, if you remember a couple days ago, you were talking about how Spain didn't want us to land our aircraft there. It's like a staging area. Right. Like, no, don't do that. Well, the president of the Madrid region, Isabel Diaz Ayuso, was apparently the one that was like, no, we need to allow the U.S. to do that. And she was quoted when people want to, stick up for the Iranian regime. I encourage them to go to Tehran alone and drunk, the Madrid president retorted in response to criticism from opposition. Bring their gay friends. See when they hang them from cranes. This is how they treat homosexuality and women. Like she was trying to make that point across in the Spanish parliament that these are not people to be messed with. You need to just go ahead and get it done.
Well, somebody ought to tell Keir Starmer that, because he is still part of the resistance across the pond, as they say. So I do find the whole thing fascinating, the nations that are against us doing what we're doing. And then you have a lot of these Muslim countries, Muslim majority countries, who are for what it is that we're doing. So fascinating, to say the least. I want to play this. I don't know. Do I have time to play a 20-second cut?
Yeah, of course. Listen to me. Sam, do we have time to play a 20-second cut?
Absolutely.
This is Bret Baier on Fox News. You got all of these people on the left talking about how Donald Trump is deeply, deeply unpopular. Listen very closely to this from Bret Baier.
If you look at the Real Clear Politics average of polls for presidents at this moment, at this day, and you look at that chart, President Trump is at 43.3%, President Obama at 42.5%, President Bush at 38.7%. All right, March 5th.
So if you missed that, Obama at this point in presidency number 2, 43.3%. Obama at this moment, President Trump's approval rating is at 43.3%. That is higher than Obama's 42.5%, and that is also higher than George Bush at 38.7%. So as much as people want to try to tell you that Donald Trump is a deeply, deeply unpopular president, the reality is that his numbers are higher than Obama and Bush at this time in their second term. There's also an NBC News poll that shows that 90% of MAGA supports Operation Epic Fury. There is a lot of talk going around about Donald Trump and his unpopularity, but I do believe that is something that honestly is being overplayed by the left and the media.